Turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. We're going to start reading at verse 1. We're going to read down through verse 11 for the moment. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Socoh, which belongs to Judah, as they camped between Socoh and Azekah, the Ephes-Dammim. Saul and his men of Israel were gathered and camped in the valley of Elah, and they drew up in battle array to encounter the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, while Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with the valley between them. Then the champion came out from the armies of the Philistine, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was clothed with scale armor, which weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze. He also had bronze greaves on his legs, and his bronze javelin slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the head of the spear weighed 600 shekels of iron. His shield carrier also walked before him. And as he stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, he said to them, "Why do you come out and draw up in battle array? Am I not the Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will become your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall become our servants and serve us." Against the Philistines, Again the Philistine said, "I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that may fight together." And when Saul and Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. I think you can see why they would be afraid. The fact of the matter is, Goliath was bigger than them, and your Goliath, whatever that turns out to be in your life, is bigger than you. David was smaller, and many of the challenges we face, we are smaller than those challenges. We cannot handle them on our own ability. But when you have faith like David had, then you don't measure the size of the opponent, because you have God. We have clever little sayings like 1 plus God is a majority. If God's for me, who can be against me? Now that one's scripture, right? And yet when we face the challenge, sometimes all of that bravado and that certainty and confidence evaporates, and we stand quaking in our boots like a kindergartner on the first day of school, not wanting to leave mama. What happened to Philippians 4:13? When we say, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Easy to say in a Bible class, isn't it? It's a little bit harder to say on the battlefield. And we'll unpack that a little bit as we go. Most of our Goliaths are going to be intangible. Now and then you'll have a tangible one, something you can get your hands on and deal with in a physical manner. But so many of our Goliaths are intangible. There's not a physical place to go to get them. It's just something that's kind of a concept, an idea, a thought that you're dealing with. And a lot of times our Goliaths are just ideas hiding in the dark shadows of our mind. And that is the worst place to let a Goliath hide, because if Goliath is generally 9 feet tall in the sunlight, when he's hiding in the shadows of our mind, he's 18 feet tall. He's 27 feet tall, because our imagination has this wonderful, diabolical ability to imagine the very worst thing possible. And we will do it again and again and again and again. There's just something about humanity that's that way. And if we happen to be right one time out of 1,000, we'll go, "See, I told you I could tell the future. I can read things people can't read." I think it's interesting how the mind works. So our Goliaths are going to appear. They're going to show up. They're going to be in your life. You can count on it. They're never going away. For a short encouragement, I would give you this. State in your mind. Don't say it out loud. You can say it out loud if you want. How old are you? Are you still alive? Then you have survived literally everything life has thrown at you to this day. Now, don't just stop right there for a moment, because we want just a brief encouragement. I want you to review in your head some of the things that hit you in life. Some of the things you thought, "Oh man, if I don't get my driver's license on the second try, the third try, my life's over." If I ask her to marry me and she says no, my life is over. What if I don't get that job I wanted? My life is over. And of course, all of it, well, most of us by now at this stage of life had had medical diagnosis that we did not appreciate. And we wonder, oh no, what's coming in the future? What am I going to do with this one? Anybody ever have financial problems and think, oh man, the next 20 years looks really ugly right now? Anybody ever worry about politics? Come on, be honest with me. How many politicians have you survived? How many different presidencies? How many different senators and representatives who didn't have enough sense to walk in out of the rain, if I may say that without naming anybody, and you're still here, right? Your Goliaths are going to appear. I don't know what they are for you. They vary from person to person. But the fact is, if you're still alive and you're still here, you beat every single one of them. Now, one of these days, one of them's going to beat you because we're going to reach that point where we have to leave this life. Whether it's the Psalms 90:10 where you get 70 to 80 years, if by reason of strength you get some more, that's good. But eventually, we all go home. Now, if you want to count that a victory or defeat, I'll let you work that out in your own mind. So when we face our Goliaths, I want to know, will we be trembling? Will we be soldiers cowering down, hiding in the dugout, trying to hide back in the barracks or something? Or will we find the courage to step up and face the enemy and go, look, I don't know the exact strategy going forward here. I don't have this all figured out. And side note, you will never have it all figured out. That's just the way life works. But do I have the courage to do the best I can at the moment? And then when I get a few feet further and I see I need to make a change, okay, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to zig this way, or I'm going to zag that way, and I'm going to keep going forward. Do I have the courage to get up and press forward, or do I want to hide behind my mama's skirt and hope she'll come rescue me from the problems I'm facing? Now, in my mind, and I hope in your mind too, if you'll glance down at verse 48 there in 1 Samuel 17, I want to be David. Now, let me be clear. I'm not telling you I'm always David. I'm saying I want to be David. What did he do? The Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David. And David went and hid behind King Saul and his brothers in the back lines and cowered and shook in his boots. No, that's not what it says, is it? David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. He knew who the enemy was. He knew who the target was. He had a strategy in mind. He had already picked his stones. He had his sling, and he was moving forward. And I'm telling you, whatever your strategy happens to be, moving forward is the way to deal with your Goliaths. So what I've done in this lesson, I picked out 4 Goliaths, and I just want to look at these. These are, I hope, rather common. You can relate to them. The Goliath of knowing the truth. In John 8:31, I think we can quote that. He says, if you continue in my words, you are my disciple. And he goes on to say there in verse 32, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And how many of us in here do not know, don't raise your hand, 2 Timothy 2:15. You've heard this one so many times. Be diligent to present yourself approved to God. A workman need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And you may want to flip over to 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. That's where he tells us all scripture is given by inspiration and is profitable for doctrine, teaching, and correction and reproof, that the man of God may be perfect and completely furnished unto every good work. So we come to the Bible and we look at the Bible, and I don't know what you use. I use a little larger print now that a few years have gone by. But my Bible at the very last page, after index and all, is 1,490 pages long. That's a little bit overwhelming, especially to somebody who does not enjoy just reading hour after hour. And you look at the book and then you hear the doctrinal arguments that are out there, and you hear somebody say there are like 3,000 major denominations in America alone, maybe 5,000. You hear all different kind of numbers. And you go, well, what could I ever do? That becomes your Goliath. That is the one taunting you. He's standing on the other side of the valley going, who are you to think you're going to understand God's word? Who are you to think you're going to figure out what nobody else has ever figured out? And the whole idea is to intimidate and repress and run you away before you ever make a step forward. And the sad thing is a lot of people buy into exactly that. Well, that's what the clergy's for. Let's let the clergy handle it. I don't like that word. It's in our language. I don't know how to get rid of that word from our language. It's just part of our vocabulary. I'm going to twist it on you a little bit and remind you that you are the clergy. I'm not the clergy. We're all the clergy. Now, I'm playing with words here, so let me put it in a biblical wording. We're all priests. You're a priest of God if you're a Christian. We're a brotherhood of priests. Now, who's going to handle it? Well, let's let the priest handle it. Amen. I agree with that. Who's the priest? You and I are the priest. We're the ones that are supposed to handle it. So if you'll allow me to say it in the modern term, we're all the clergy. We're the ones that are supposed to handle it. We're the soldiers of Christ arise. We put our armor on, but we didn't like that. We were kind of like Israel at the foot of the mountain. Remember, God's on the mountain. He speaks from the mountain, and all Israel goes, no, 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 Moses, you deal with it. We can't handle this. And then a special priesthood was developed at God's instruction, so they wouldn't have to do dealing with God. They could go do what they wanted to do. We like that, don't we? Well, I'm busy. I got a lot of stuff to do. I got a lot of things I want to do. Can't we just have a special class over here that does all the studying for us? We'll call them priests, call them the clergy, call them whatever you want to call them. And no, that's not the way the Bible does it. If we're actually going to do it the way the Bible does it, then we are all priests. We all learn it. And you just build it day by day. If you'll glance there at 1 Samuel 17, if you're still at that opening, David's training began when he was very young. And he started very young. But in that training, he slowly learned, and he said, I killed a lion and a bear. But do you think he did that on day one? If you'll remember the story, when Samuel went to anoint the new king, David was so young and insignificant, they didn't even bother calling him in from tending the sheep. But do you know where he was? He was out tending the sheep. Well, what do you do when you're tending the sheep? Well, you protect the sheep. And now and then a lion or a bear will try to get one of your sheep. And that's where young David was. So if you have persistence with your study, and you keep looking at that Goliath that you think is so big that you can never get, sure you can get it. Zig Ziglar used to say, you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Now, that's a little comical, but that's the way it works. You keep saying, I can. And eventually that Goliath shrinks. And the things you thought you could never understand and know, you know. And the Bible is just an open source. God's not trying to hide His Word from us. He gave us a revelation of His Word so we could study His Word and figure it out. Now, it's not a fun with Dick and Jane reader, is it? See Dick kick the ball, see Jane kick the ball. How many of you had those readers? I literally did, all the way back in first, second grade. That was our first reader. And it was very, very simple. Well, I think God has a little more genius behind the way He wrote the book. I know a lot of people would like to have just a list of rules. Give me 14 rules, give me 10 commandments, give me 18 or whatever, and let me just do that real quick. And God says, no, I want something deeper here. I want all your heart. I want all your soul. I want all your mind. And so He gave us an open source, and it is there, and it's all there. But it's not a fun with Dick and Jane reader, is it? You got to put some time and effort. You got to put some priority in it. So I say study doesn't require that you have brilliance. I say study requires that you have loyalty, that you have consistency. And if you consistently tackle that Goliath, you'll get it. Now, if you give up, you'll never get it. Somebody said in a little podcast I was listening to this morning, says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Now, that's a sports analogy, but let me say that, basketball. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Now, we have a whole lot of people wishing they could make some scores, but they never take the shot. You have to consistently put the ball up. You got to consistently try. And if you'll be loyal, you can take that Goliath of big scale knowledge that overwhelms you at first, and you can whittle it down and whittle it down and whittle it down. I'm going to tell you something the preacher said. I thought it was kind of clever, maybe a little bit snarky, but a member came up to him after service and said, man, I wish I knew everything you knew. And he said, you can. You just got to put in the time. And that's true. So what would happen if we believed God's word was accessible to the diligent? That's your Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God. What would happen if we really believed that? Then our Goliath would fall. Then we have living a long, faithful life. Now, for some of us, I say this not too snarkily, but for some of us, long, faithful life's not that long anymore, is it? You know, Psalm 90:10 said we get 70, 80 years. You know, we know that some of us get more, and a lot of us are going, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know where you're at exactly. I know where some of you are exactly, but if I'm looking at the 70 part of Psalms 90:10, that's just about a year and a half away. You know, so when I look at Revelation 2:10, it says, be thou faithful unto death, I'm thinking, not as tough. But what if you're 16? What if you're 13, 18, 22, 25? That's a whole different trajectory, isn't it? And sometimes the idea of being faithful for a whole long life doesn't look really possible. How am I ever going to do that? I got a quick secret. One day at a time. Just one day at a time. Strength doesn't spring up in an instant. It is something you develop, you cultivate, and you maintain. And you just consistently do it one step at a time. We do a song on this. I don't know if it's in our current songbook. I get the two mixed up in my head. But whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. Do not in name of man or creed. Do all in the name of the Lord. You're familiar with that line. That's Colossians 3:17 for the most part. And that's what you do. Just consistently, daily little steps, whatever you're doing, you do it for the Lord. You do it with the Lord in mind. And so your endurance, it's not a steady burst. It's not something that just explodes on you. Endurance is that long, slow marathon pacing, where you pace your run, planning for years and years and years. And if you pace it and you stay in it and you nurture it the right way, it works. So most of your days are going to be absolutely ordinary days, and they are. Isn't that right? I don't like to keep a journal, but I think we ought to keep a journal sometimes. And, just write down today. And you can just write this, another ordinary day, another ordinary day, another ordinary day. And out of 365 days, I'm positive the majority of them you will write another ordinary day. Some of them you may even write another mundane day or maybe another tiring routine day, but it's all going to come into the same plot. And then now and then things are going to happen. You're going to put it in there that wasn't ordinary. And you're going to have something different. And sometimes they're going to be really big. Sometimes they're going to be aggravating. But most days are just ordinary days. So whatever you do it as though you're doing it for the Lord. That's the Colossians 3:23. And if you're at that Colossians 3 opening, I want you to glance at 3:17 and then compare it to 3:23 because the ideas are identical. There's just a little bit different application there. And I think that's interesting. So don't dwell on the finish line. The finish line, who knows how far out it's there. We have currently in America, because Bobby and I were talking about this the other day, he said, how many centenarians over 100 years old are? And I said, I don't know, let me look it up. Isn't that the neat thing about the phone? You pull the phone out, I ask chat, how many 100-year-old plus are there in America? And currently in America, there's about 110,000 people over 100. And some of us could be that. Very possible. How many people you know who are in their 80s and their 90s? Brother George just had his 94th birthday yesterday. Martindale McLean coming up on his 94th birthday if he makes it to September. I mean, you're looking out there, and there's a lot of people making some years. And so if you start trying to find the finish line, because you never know where it's at, but you try to find it, and you try to look a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, it's overwhelming. What if I just focus on today? And if I set the stage of today just right to the best I can, then tomorrow morning when I wake up to a stage that's set for the best possible success. Now, I'll have to rearrange some things, I understand, in that next day. But if I leave the stage set best as I understand day by day, then I live my best life and I have endurance and I can make it however long the Lord decides I will make it. Then we have the Goliath of fear and anxiety, which can come from a bazillion different angles. We just have days that are so full of fearful imaginations. I don't know how you relate to the news and stuff, but news is primarily fear mongering. Because fear gets our attention, we will pay more attention to the things we're afraid of than the things that we're happy and delighted with. Now, that's just basic psychology. And so things that come in, you notice the negative quicker. I don't know that that's bad. Now, the psychology on it says if your great, 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 great ancestors living in the wild didn't have that keen sense of danger approaching, then a lion would have ate them and you wouldn't be here. And so you're here because you come from a long, consistent line of ancestors who were aware of the dangers around them and responded before the danger got them. Now, when I word it that way, I'm thinking, hey, I'm set up pretty good, right? I got 6,000 years of ancestry behind me, and all of them were smart enough to stay alive. If they weren't, of course, we wouldn't be here. And so I don't know that being aware of fear is a bad thing. I want to call it a management thing. You've got to know where the ditches are on the side of the road, but at the same time, you've got to know where you're going and keep your focus and watch the other traffic now. And nowadays, you better be focusing on who's talking on their cell phone while they're driving. So fear is out there and you want to be aware of it, but you don't want to listen to that. That's the wrong voice to focus in on. That's what Goliath was doing. He was standing on the other side. He's 9 feet tall and he's bellowing out, and all they're doing is listening to his voice. And then they're doing what most of us would do. Back then, the average height of the man was something like 5'5", 5'3". They're looking at their short little self compared to Goliath, going, well, I can't take him. And they were right. A little 5'4" man couldn't take a 9-foot giant. That's just simple logic. And they listened to the wrong source. Then David, of course, comes along and he has a better focus. He says the battle is the Lord's. And you're still there in 1 Samuel 17. You can see that right there in verse 47. David wasn't looking at his youth. He wasn't looking at his small stature compared to Goliath. He was listening to the voice of the Lord. And he ran to meet his adversary. Now, I do want to say courage is not denial. And let's do Psalms 56:3 very quickly here. The motivational speakers say courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to walk across your fear. I like that. And David said, when I'm afraid. Now catch that. What did David say? When I'm afraid, I will put my trust in you. Courage is not that you're never going to be nervous or worried or your adrenaline's never going to be pumping. That's going to happen. Courage is, I know God's got this. It's going to work out okay. Anxiety leaves God out of the equation. Anxiety thinks it's all up to me. Anxiety forgets Philippians 4:13, which we like to quote. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's a good quote. And if anxiety comes in and it's debilitating me, if anxiety comes in and I'm like pinned to my bed in depression and hiding under my sheets, I've left Philippians 4:13 out. If I'm too afraid to step out of the house, I've left 1 Samuel 17:47 out. Courage. Sure, you're going to be scared at times, but you're going to go ahead and do what needs to be done. So we get to choose which voice we listen to, and I think that's exciting. And there are a lot of good voices out there that you can listen to. Finally, we want to talk about drifting. Hebrews 2:1 says we must give the more earnest heed lest we drift away. I do want to read 2 Timothy 4:3 and 4. 2 Timothy 4:3 and 4. I think drifting is one of our biggest and most common Goliaths that we all face. Paul writes to Timothy, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled, they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own desire, and will turn away their ears from the truth and turn aside to myths. We face a lot of false doctrine, a lot. And in our society, we face it in a way that's relatively new. We do live in a global community. When I was growing up in the 60s, early 70s, I knew there was such a thing as a Buddhist, but I never met a Buddhist. I knew there was Islam, but I didn't have a clue what country you'd have to go to find somebody who was Islamic, right? You know, you knew these things were out there. The only thing we ever saw on TV was the Hare Krishnas, or whatever they call them, the guys that shaved their head except for a ponytail off the side. And, you know, they were wearing a dress, and we just thought that was weird. Now, the Islamic community is in our community. And if you ask around, the Buddhists are in our community. And the Buddhists don't look like they're from the Far East. A lot of the Buddhists, all the Buddhists I've met, look like they're from Arkansas or maybe Oklahoma. And we have a lot of pressure on us to just be quiet and not rock the boat and cause any stirring up. There's just a lot of pressure on us to give our approval. You're not supposed to say anything that somebody could potentially interpret as being mean or unkind. Well, what in the world is that? That just means if I disagree with you on anything, I'm mean and unkind, unless we're talking about whether a pink snow cone is better than a blue snow cone. And there are people out there that would take offense to that. Oh, you got a problem with a pink snow cone? You just think you're better than pink, don't you? And they'd be all up in their feelings over that one. It is a crazy, mind-numbing, bizarre society that we live in. And that's the kind of thing that Goliath was just trying to, intimidate them, and that constant threat and that constant pressing down on them. And we're facing it in our modern sense. Well, you're not supposed to judge anyone, in which case you need to really, really, really memorize John 7:24, where he said, judge righteous judgment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The verses get misquoted a lot. So we got a lot of constant pressure on us. It's there. Oh, you can't talk about the gay community. And heaven forbid you say the wrong word about the gay community. Boy, now they're really offended. You didn't say the right words for the alternate lifestyle. You can't say gay. Just as an aside, how many of the sixth grade got in a Christmas program, and one of your songs was, Don we now our gay apparel. La la la, la la la, la la la. Do you know now they sing, Don we now our happy apparel. Fa la la, la la la. I'm like, what are we giving into? The adults that were ahead of us sold us out. We got a lot of adults now selling us out. We need to take a stand. We need to be like Joshua 24:15. You choose who you're going to serve. You want to serve the gods of the Amorites on the other side of the river, you go serve them. That's your business. That's your call. You get to enter eternity however you want to. And if you want to walk head up into hell, that's your business. I don't recommend it, but that's your business. But as for me and my house, we know where our boundaries are. We know who we serve. We know where we stand. And you ain't coming into my house bringing that modern, crazy, everybody's love, let's sing around and sing kumbaya or what have you. No. But look at how many people you know have given into that kind of pressure. And look how it's crept into our own minds. And it has. And sometimes we can't even see it. So we got Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Of course, Daniel in the lion's den. These were young men that were taken out of their home place, and they were thrust into a society that practiced a whole lot of things they did not believe and they did not agree with. There was a whole lot of stuff there that was sin, right? Absolutely it was sin. And they said, we got to take a stand. You know what most people do now? We don't need to be rocking the boat here. They resisted the king's menu. Let's just kind of pick around on the menu and eat the part we like instead of upsetting the cart here. The king said we're not supposed to pray. Daniel could have said, well, I'll just pray in my heart for these 30 days. No, that would have been given into the enemy. Daniel said, no, I'm going to my balcony and I'm praying just the way I always prayed. He took his stand. He didn't let the Goliath of his day make him water it down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that fire looks pretty hot, guys. I'll tell you what, let's just kneel down and we'll pretend like we're tying our sandal. We won't really be worshiping, but at least our head will be down like everybody else. This will be okay. That's all that is giving in. Don't do that. You look at your Goliath, and if things go a different direction than you had planned on them going, so be it. Because Goliath's going to try to intimidate you. He's going to try to come across with all kinds of things and silence you. Look, if we, the soldiers, don't stand up and take a stand and say, this is right and that is wrong, this is holiness, that is sin, then who won? I don't care which political party you're a part of. Wouldn't you love it if the one you consider the opposition party just hushed their mouth and quit talking altogether? Wouldn't that be great? Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care. If you could get the other party just to be quiet, look at the free opening you'd have. And what's Satan done to us? I want you to watch your life. I want you to watch how much you tiptoe around things. I don't want you going up punching somebody in the nose. But there's a time to take a stand. And if you and I, as these soldiers, don't take the stand, they're going to win. They're winning too much as it is. We've lost a lot of courage. We've lost a lot of stuff because we looked at the sides of Goliath. And one other thing, there's a bit of our psychology that loves to be included. Now, there are a whole lot of people that I don't need anybody. I can stand on my own. But they still like to be included. And they don't want to rock the boat and they don't want to get pushed out. They've been intimidated. And that's all Satan wants. Let's just get God's people to be quiet. 2 Thessalonians 2:15, he said, I want you to stand firm. I want you to hold fast the traditions which you were taught. So that's not rocket science, is it? Well, it might not go well for me. What if people don't like me? What if I get criticized? What if somebody opposes me? Oh my goodness, how bad would that be? Matthew 10:28, he said, look it up, do not fear those who can kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do to you. But rather I'll tell you who to fear. Fear the one that after he has killed the body can destroy the soul in hell. Which one do you want to be? Whose side do you really want to be on? The body's disposable. You may not know it, but it is disposable. Whether you're faithful or unfaithful, you're losing a body. And then you'll stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And now he can say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Or he can say, depart, I know you not. So we choose God. David chose God. David's victory was because he had already aligned his heart with God. He already had that one settled. And I know he came along and you get kind of call it an unexpected victory. And sometimes you get those. And sometimes you don't. Stephen, Acts 7, he didn't get an unexpected victory, did he? And at the end of Paul's life, most people believe that he was beheaded. But David won, and you will win if your heart is fully 100% aligned with God. No equivocation, no yeah, but no quibbling. I'm God. God said it, that settles it. I'm on his side. David had one agenda, to glorify God. And that's the start of a whole nother lesson, but my time's up, so I'll quit talking. Let me go right here. Victory over your giants. That begins with a heart already loyal to God. Those choices already made before the battle ever begins. That's who stands tall. That's who enters victory even if the body goes to the grave. Let the body go to the grave. Now don't rush it, but it's going. It's appointed unto man wants to die. Not too worried about what comes of the body. I'm a little more worried about what I hear after I step out of the body and before the judgment seat of Christ. And I don't want to step over there with a bunch of equivocating and quibbling and, rationalizing things out so that I felt fit into my liberal cultural society. I want to stand over there clothed in Christ in a garment without spots. That's tough, but it's doable. If you haven't yet put Christ on in baptism, our baptistry is ready. We're here to help however we can while we stand.